Are we going to go to war with China anytime soon? And I would tell you, China's domestic and economic challenges, I think, over time, will reduce the probability for a large-scale conflict in the near term, even though, and this is an important caveat, the tensions will continue between the United States, Taiwan, and China. Those tensions will continue. They will remain high. The military buildup on China's part and on the part of the United States as recognizing China as our military or defense pacing threat will continue. And the gray zone provocations in and around China, in and around China's South China Sea, the Taiwan Straits, and around the borders of the maritime borders of Taiwan, all of that will continue unabated, okay? Which leaves us in a position where there are some black swans in some instances which might precipitate a conflict, an unanticipated conflict, that could come about because of, for example, a collision or an accidental military encounter between the United States and Chinese forces in the South China Sea. And we've already seen that, and I would argue one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet is the current battle going on, or passive battle going on between the Philippine Armed Forces and Chinese maritime authorities in the South China Sea. Any miscommunication over Taiwan's status originating in Taipei, for example, unlikely but possible that Taiwan would declare unilateral independence, or the United States would unilaterally recognize Taiwan's independence. Obviously, those two factors could lead very quickly towards a conflict. We also need to look at islands that both involved with our allies and partners, the islands in Korea, the islands off the coast of Japan, for example, the Senkaku Islands, and that a confrontation between China and Japan over, for example, the Senkakus could draw the United States into a conflict. And finally, we have to always continue if an assertive U.S., South Korea, Japan response to North Korean provocation would prompt China to take some type of action on their own to either defend the status quo with respect to North Korea or come to North Korea's aid. Okay? So these are all black swans or things that could happen that could shape this. Our alliance structure, as we know, is under stress, with both the China and the United States encouraging countries to choose sides. And as we know, several of our allies have specifically asked us, do not force us to choose sides, please. Okay? For example, in Singapore and in other places. Okay? I think other countries, and we need to be prepared for this, might participate in hedging or bandwagoning, and we cannot assume that even our closest allies will come to our aid in the event of a conflict between the United States and China. So let me sum up here. We've talked about a lot of things, but let me sum up here where I think we are. Okay? I think we need to watch this space, watch this space. Both the United States and China have significant domestic economic issues to manage, as well as security issues. Both are concerned about the extent to which their economies are dependent on each other, but few see few attractive alternatives in the wings. And both have complaints about the post-World War II international order. I've had Chinese generals tell me that Bretton Woods is dead. The conference held at the end of World War II that set up the post-war economic order and the post-war security order, they've told me that Bretton Woods is dead. I think many of us would agree that certainly the global socioeconomic and political landscape is evolving rapidly. The question is, what will replace it? And I would argue that China and the United States have two very different views of what the future will bring.